part of the reason why I chose this topic, because of stories I heard from my family about my great aunt Dorothy and how she was a doctorate of education and she taught in the prison system. I've heard a lot about these stories during family gatherings like Thanksgiving because it was just something nice to talk about because she was my great-grandfather's sister and she had just recently passed away. And we would just enlighten each other and just about her, and this is what, and it was one of those things that came up is that she taught in the prison system because that was her job for a while before she eventually retired, obviously. But one of the reasons why she believed teaching in the system was a good thing is because it helped with poverty and coming back to jail. And so I decided to look up and learn that 30 years ago she was basically right. I mean, there's so much going on in the prison system now that I think that form of rehabilitation would be good for prisoners. I mean, that's just my personal opinion. I feel like everyone should have a right to education. Being confined, I feel that is a perfect way for them to spend their spare time, is getting some quality education. I mean, I know Dan Snyder, I should say Mr. Snyder, I was in his public speaking class and he was telling the class that he teaches at the Attica prison from time to time, and I thought it was so interesting, and the stories he'd tell us were pretty funny because he's really funny, but it was just really cool in how he does it, because I personally would be afraid, but I do like the idea of them getting an education. But I have learned through my research that it cuts down long-term recidivism by 29%. I also learned that it saves money for taxpayers and it contributes to the well-being and safety of the community, and that's a really big part. You know, the community needs it. And what was shocking to me was that most of the prisoners do not even have a high school diploma, which is true, they don't. And that often comes with how they were raised and where they were raised. It has a lot of background meaning to that. As I said in my discussion, and as I will be saying in my PowerPoint, prisoners that are in the educational program show improvements in their behavior and there's less violence. And that is up to 75%. That's a pretty big number. And not only does not only people that are in incarceration affect the prisoner, or not only does incarceration affect the prisoner, but it affects their family, like their kids. And study shows that children of inmates see what their parents achieved, like in the educational program, and it really pushes them to go to college and make something of themselves, and that breaks the cycle of the poverty, the generational incarceration, and them dropping out of school. What I found out as well is that people of color have a greater disadvantage than their white counterparts, than most 37% of people. But with most 37% of people of color in jail, and this is why it is vital that we have education in our prison system, because it helps our community and it gets them a quality education where they can do so many things after they get out. I mean, Mr. Snyder was telling us how the prisoners, when one of his students, I shouldn't say prisoners, but one of his students, when they got out of prison, they found his email and emailed him and told him that they were going to be continuing their education at GCC. And I just thought that was so cool, because they were only in there for a minor thing, but that minor thing stopped their education. But being in there and being offered that educational value, it opens doors for people. And I think that is really amazing, and that is why prisoners should have that educational experience that the rest of us do get.